You're watching CCN, Clarksville Community Network. Produced by Goodwin Productions. Powered by CDE Lightband.
Welcome. This is Coach's Corner at the CCN Network. Welcome, everyone. My coach is here. Hey, we got Todd Hood, Rossview High School. Coach, you guys introduce yourself.
Rob Gallowitz, West Creek High School.
Reynaldo Peña, Northwest High School.
Hey, this is episode 2, so the first thing we want to talk about is a little spring ball. We got a little winter time going on. We got some weights. So we got some different things we're trying to work through as coaches. So, Coach G, what do you have going on this winter?
Right now, we are just basically doing weightlifting and speed training. And
so you got fast guys, or are you trying to train them to be fast? Well,
we got fast guys. Okay. We got fast guys that need to get bigger. So that's our biggest. West Creek's always been known to have good track athletes. We have a really good track program. The big thing that we're looking forward to is just adding more bulk and weight, especially on that offensive line, to be able to compete in this new region. So that's kind of our main focus through January and February, and then once we get down to kind of March and April, we'll go outside and kind of do some things and kind of get us ready for May.
Sort of pick it up from there. What about you, Coach?
More of the same. We're lifting. We're getting our weightlifting program rolling. Getting some young guys in there and development. Speed and position specific at with our 6-1 rule. We utilize that as well. But our basic thing is just getting stronger as a whole team. That was
So the 6-1 rule is you get to work 66 players per coach. Is that the rule?
Depends on who you ask.
Oh, okay.
Depends on who you ask.
And where you're at, maybe? Is that
6 players, 1 coach?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Six players, 1 coach. If it was 66,
I'll make a note of that on my board
right.
when I get back. Okay, thank you.
But yes. 6 players, 1 coach. We do position-specific development through that. Utilize that as well. But right now it's just strength, power. Basically the biggest things. We have to work a little bit with speed more so than West Creek does. You're absolutely correct. I have amazing speed over there at West Creek. So our guys are pretty decent, but we have to do our speed training as well.
Speaking of speed, let me ask you this. Is the coaches getting any faster? I mean, it's important that you guys move pretty good to keep up with these kids. So are you guys moving a little faster? Are you guys doing speed training, some lifting off-season work? How's that going?
Somebody's got to supervise the kids. So I'm taking on the position to just make sure that they're not, running into walls or each other or, bouncing off of anything. Big safety guy. I'm the safety coach right now. So yeah, I'm not doing any speed training myself.
How about you, Coach B?
I don't want to go the inspirational route too soon on the show, but if I'm in shape, they better be in shape. Yeah. So I do go lift a lot. I work out. I don't do speed. I don't. But my staff, my guys, they're there and they're helping out and they're great. And those, most of those guys are military guys. We look like we're in shape. We do look like it. But I don't know if we all have the speed to get out there and go do stuff with these guys.
Well, I had staff one time, and 3 coaches could bench over 400 pounds. So I told them, I said, if something ever breaks out, I'm getting right behind you. Yeah. Don't you worry, you're in front of me. All right, let's look at some spring ball. So Coach, what's your dates for spring ball? What are you looking at? What are you looking to improve? You trying to fill any holes? What are you looking for in your program this spring?
Well, our biggest thing, I think, is we're going to go the first week of May, second week of May. Hopefully we'll get some of our baseball kids back. And then that's when I think track is kind of, rounding out as well. So some guys get out of certain events so they can come back to us. So we're hoping to go those 2 weeks, and then we're kind of figuring out who our opponent is going to be right now. I think it's going to be Montgomery Central, where, you have a really good, well-coached team where you can kind of slow some things down, teach. It doesn't have to be so rushed, and you can kind of create an environment where it's a lot of learning that's taking place, right. Especially this year we lost our quarterback, Caden Pace.
That's a good thing for us.
Yeah, it's a good thing for everybody else. Because I mean, there's the amount of things that he could do with his feet and his arm.
Very talented.
It made him a really special player. So, and we lost Montel, our running back, and we lost a couple key pieces on the defensive line. So it's working to really kind of grow some of those kids up from the sophomore and junior group, and then finding a quarterback, which is always kind of I think the ongoing process that we all kind of go from. So, what about you, Coach?
So for me, we are basically looking for linemen. I think we've lost a few linemen this year, so we're looking to build the linemen up in strength and technique, learn some new stuff that we're trying to implement this year. That's a big piece for us. We've got some changes going on in the staff, so we've got some new things we're putting in with coordinators and with our position coaches and new schemes and techniques. So spring will be very good for us to get the terminology down if it's new in some areas, and coaches learning the kids and put them in the right spot. So that's going to be a big thing for me as a coach. I want our kids in the proper spot as soon as possible.
Yep.
I don't want them to practice at corner for 4 weeks and then all of a sudden they're playing free safety. Mm-hmm. So I want to try to identify the kids as soon as possible, put them in their place so they get the most reps and try to get them comfortable with that position. So we're going to look at that, but mainly schemes both sides of the ball, and then some skilled guys plugging our guys in as well. So it'll be a big time for us too, just to get all that straightened out for us. Coach P, Northwest?
In the traditional sense, we usually do a spring game as well. We'll be first week of May, second week of May as well. But this year we're gonna tighten it in, lock it in, and do the same thing with you. Focus on scheme, focus on what we want to run, implement some new things that we snuck and saw on film and stealing from West Creek. We're gonna steal some stuff from them, steal some stuff from some guys that we saw. It's just how we always are as coaches. We see great things.
You're trying to say that a coach might steal something from another coach?
Well, I mean, would that
be like a kid maybe copying something in the classroom? Not that happens, but is that possible that you see something you might like from another coach?
More
Absolutely.
inspiration.
I think more so.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
I think more so coaches always go back on film or watch film or probably even watch. I mean, I'm a junkie, so I watch college games, I watch NFL games, and you go back and you look at those things and say, hey, that might work for our formations, and you bring it to your coordinators and see what they, and bounce off ideas, see what they think, and go from there. So that's really the biggest deal. But just like you said, we're going to have an inter squad deal, but more so we really want to hone in on our guys understanding that are not in other sports. We got guys in track, we got guys in baseball, but making sure they understand this is a year where we want to make sure that we know what we're doing formation-wise, we know what we understand. Now we want to refine it and make sure that we know it secondhand so we can go out there and compete at a high level. So that's the most important thing going into spring for us.
That sounds good. Well, so coaches are off season. So is there really an off season? So we are planning, drawing up weights. We are, in the weight room. We're organizing that. We're looking at schemes. We're going to clinics. And speaking of clinics, so I think my staff might be going to maybe Atlanta, maybe Nashville, but maybe somebody might want to leave the state. So, Coach G, where do you think your staff might go?
Well, we got a couple, options that we're going to. We're going out into Nevada. All right.
Yeah. And what's in Nevada? Is there a big place out there? Anything?
There's a big coaching clinic that we're going to.
Yeah. Where would that be specifically, Coach?
I don't think he's talking Reno.
Yeah, it's out there. But yeah, I mean, there's once you go to Cincinnati and you go to Nashville and you go to Alabama, you go to all these different clinics in Atlanta and things like that. It's good to branch out sometimes, and kind of learn from some new faces.
So would there be any gambling or any machines?
Oh, no.
Okay. We'll just check. I mean,
straight football,
Okay,
straight football. It's getting hot in here. But yeah, it's just a good time to hang out with your staff, kind of brainstorm, lock everybody in. It's kind of a camp. We take our kids to camp, and it's kind of the same aspect. You want to get everybody together. We're brainstorming. We're hearing from other coaches from the college level, the high school level, and basically, using what you're never going there and then coming back and remodeling the whole thing. But it is nice when you go out there. You're like, I've never thought about teaching this technique this particular way. This may help our kids, or maybe sometimes you get certain little nuggets here and there where you can apply it to your program. And I think that's the biggest thing. We try to map it out to where everybody is kind of hitting a particular speaker, right? A particular class, and then we can kind of go from there. And I think that helps us quite a bit, is because, again, then we all go back to the hotel room.
Right.
We sit down, we say, okay, what did you get? All right, how can we maybe use that? All right, well, that's not going to work for us.
That's college level. That's too much for us.
It'd be easy if I had a 5-star kid, you know what I mean? But, kids that are just learning the game and coming up, that's maybe a little too much. And so you kind of pull stuff from that. So the clinics are great. So what about you? Are you guys going anywhere?
Yeah, well, I have a method to my madness. We, of course, will go to a local one in Nashville. I had some guys go to the one in Atlanta this past weekend. I'll be going to Charlotte. There's going to be one in Charlotte.
They got slot machines in Charlotte?
I'm not sure. I'm a South Carolina guy.
Oh, okay.
But,
you got the beach. You got the okay.
Yeah.
Sorry there.
And then usually I always have a sense of going to one on my own for my own personal development. Y'all have great minds who've been head coaches for a while and know the game, and you can always learn. So I always last year I went to UGA and Alabama's clinics. This year I wanted to go back to UGA ultimately, and the lineup of coaches that they bring in at the University of Georgia is phenomenal. And so I always do one with my staff, and then there might be other ones that we go like in groups, or we might all go as well. But then I take one for my personal growth and my personal development every year as well too.
That sounds good.
That's awesome.
So for me, it's I've been going to clinics since 1902. It's 1922. It's not been quite that far. But so I like to find a staff, maybe of a program that we might want to implement. Maybe it's a 3-4 scheme on the defense, maybe it's a spread offense, maybe it's a wing tee, whatever it is that we think we might want to look at, and sit down with them, meet their coaches, go to their plays, sit down for a few hours and just do some one-on-one. Hey, what's your calls? What do you like? Why do you do this? What's your personnel? And we try to do that. I get more out of that than going to a clinic, listen to different topics, and you get lots of things out of clinics. And the golden rule is if you can get one thing that you can bring back for your program, that's going to be a plus for you. So we try to do that on a yearly basis, and we've got a lot out of that.
Do you normally go to colleges, or do you usually go to high schools?
Usually high schools. We've done some colleges. I got a few buddies that coach, so we've done that as well. And locally, obviously, with Austin P too. But mostly high school coaches, see what they're doing and implement some things that we like that they're doing. Maybe they like some things that we're doing, and we just sort of share those ideals off of each other.
Yeah, we actually did that over Christmas break. During that 2-week dead period. Twitter is such a useful resource, I think, because people are sharing ideas and drawing things up and asking how you'll attack this and that. And I saw Jamal Stewart, he's at East Nashville. He was reaching out to Josh Crouch over at Green Hill about meeting up, and I was like, you guys got room? And so I went over there, and I think they had Trousdale County or somebody, and it was all 4 of us in there, and we were just kind of going through ideas and program things. And I think you're right. Like sometimes those are the best moments, because you can ask questions and hey, we play familiar opponents. What did you guys see when you played them, or how did you attack this when they gave you maybe the wing or the tight end look, or whatever it may be. And so, I agree. I think those are hands down are my favorite. I think high school coaches have similar resources than us. You know what I mean? Where at the college level, it's like, well, I just put my 5-star quarterback back there, put my 4-star wide receivers out there, and we just run, all types of different concepts. And it's like, well,
the other side, when you go to clinics, they could be speakers from Georgia, could be the head coach, could be offensive coordinator, could be Middle Tennessee's receiver coach. And I think sometimes they give you some good drills and some things to implement in their schemes, but sometimes you don't get things that hey, what do you call this? Or because they don't want to tell you exactly what they're doing. So sometimes they don't share everything. And when you talk one-on-one with the coaches, you can really get the tidbits and the details of what you really like to get out of that, if it's a scheme or alignment issue or a call or something like that.
And that's what I was going to ask is most of these coaches that go to these clinics, they give us the grand scheme of things, what you see in front, but just curtains in the background, you want to know how it ticks. Like what side, what hash are you running at? Are you running on certain specific downs? Or, you know, you only run it against certain formations? You know, how do you plan all these things out? And, you know, they don't want to give you their bread and butter plays.
Right.
They don't want to, because they know that's the effective way, even if you don't play them at all. You know, those things, you know, we all keep in that lock and safe behind us, which is great. And that's leads me to my question with y'all are, you know, through all the years that y'all have been coaching as either coordinators or head coaches, is it difficult for you to change based off of your personnel or based off of the times that we've seen? Because we all know spread offense boomed.
Sure.
And now we have
Sure.
pistol offense booms now. You know, there's, you know, defenses that, you know, fire zones, those things are booming now in college and down here. Like, is it a difficult task for you to say, well, I've been running this for so many years, maybe I should run this based off of who I have or what it looks like against a certain new formation?
Well, I think for us, it's our defensive scheme has almost changed yearly, and that is basically solely off of our personnel. We you know, you go some places, they've run a 3-4 for 10 years because two linebackers graduate, the JV kids step in, and they just keep doing their scheme. You know, but for us, it hasn't been that way. We've had to implement different things for our kids. So that's sort of how we've done things. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we try to fit it with our personnel, I think. And that was kind of my biggest issue, I think, when I got to, you know, when I came back to West Creek from the school I left. You know, the school I left, we ran traditionally a 3-4. And so that's kind of what I knew. But then, you know, you start trying to fit kids into certain pieces, and it's like, we don't really have this kind of player here at the outside backer position or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then we had to just basically, like, I mean, really, our defense came from a clinic. I mean, I met a guy there. We started talking about it. I talked about, like, the personnel we have. We're always going to have, like, track kids.
It's
like,
disruptive, man.
You know what I mean?
Really
but then we don't have a lot of size. So, like, what can we do to, like, make those two kind of fit? Like, our defense probably wouldn't work, you know, if we didn't have these two, we call them a bullet, but it's these outside backers that walk up and, you know, just crash on the line of scrimmage. And I think without those players, if we don't have a player like that, then you've got to adjust. Like, you just can't, like, you know, I try to tell people all the time, like, you just can't just, like, oh, well, like, we're stuck. Like, I guess we're just not going to run defense this year. Like, you got to figure it out. And
for sure.
I mean, that's, like, you can complain about, I don't have this, I don't have that, but, like, at the end of the day, you got what you got. And that's what we try to do, is just, you know, figure out, okay, does this defense, what does it require? It requires, you know, these certain characteristics for these certain positions. Do we have kids that fit each one of these positions?
For
yes.
sure.
I got a kid that's a quick twitch kid. He's a little stronger. All right, he can play here. All right, I got a kid that's a two-gapper. He can play here. Like, you know what I mean? And then you look at, like, what do we have coming behind them? Can we plug and play some of these kids? Yep. All right, I think we can do it. And then we run it. And, I mean, like, this year was our best year defensively in school history for points against.
Right.
So, I mean, and when you're playing against 6A, Beach, Hendersonville, Gallatin,
They can
Rossview,
score.
you know,
volumes,
everybody in
man.
our district, you know, I mean, there's points going to be scored. And so, you know, that's a good opportunity, you know, for us to see, okay, this worked. Let's stick with this, because we know what we have coming up, and, you know, be able to utilize our kids.
I mean, the good thing, you see, like the NFL playing, you see like a 3-4 defense, and the next team's playing a 3-4 defense. But what people may not know is that nose guard may be 6'3", 330 pounds, and it runs about a 4.9 40.
Yeah.
And he's a two-gapper. Or if we're going to run a 3-4, do we have small guys where we can slant and move?
Yep.
So now your defense is going to be a different variation of what you see on TV. So when I was first started coaching wing T offenses, 7 year, I would see 7 teams every year run the wing T offense. So obviously I had to learn how to stop the wing T. And, you know, slowly that progressed into the spread, into some other things, and, you know, a lot of play action stuff out of the pro eye. You'd see that early on. So nowadays, predominantly, you see a lot of spread offenses, and a lot of motions and different things that you didn't see back in the golden days. You still see some teams run some basic wing T offenses and things like that, but you don't see it like you used to.
Yeah.
You know,
It's dressed different, for
it's
sure.
a lot different, yeah. So what about for you, Coach?
You know, it's very. I'm really a guy, like, when it comes to, like, with my coordinators. I want to make sure, number one, that what they run, they're okay with running.
Right.
I mean, you got to put in the work when it comes to our staff. Like, if we're going to adjust, I mean, with us, like, we're going to have defensive line. Our defensive line is going to be, really, really good if they put in the work. So one of the biggest things is, on that is making sure that we put in the work to understand, like, what we run traditionally, we may have to shift, we may have to change. We may have to change it drastically.
Right.
It's the fact of going in that room and going in, we call it our war room, and sitting there and understanding what we have on that board and who we have ready. We can go out there tomorrow and run this kind of offense, this kind of defense. And it just takes a lot of work, a lot of film study, a lot of knowing who your personnel is going to be. And the off season that's probably one of the more interesting parts of the off season, because it's so unknown. You can be like, now you can say, well, okay, we have this person coming back, this person coming back, this person coming back. But by July, it's like, okay, this person moved. This person's coming in, right? Yeah. This person transferred.
Makes a big difference.
And now are you back at the drawing board or not is the question. But you're absolutely right as far as the personnel and what they fit and what it's going to look like. And I think the biggest thing about that is just understanding that personnel. And the biggest thing we all three face is finding that quarterback.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's going to be at the forefront, is who's going to be leading your team on both sides of the ball, where you can accommodate their strengths and cover up their weaknesses amongst great coaching.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think we always stress and try to find out things like that. And like you're talking about, kids come in, you find them in a spot and they move and transfer. Now you thought you had something squared away, and really you don't. You have to go back to the drawing board where you got to move somebody, and that changes another position. So all those things are important when you're trying to plan and what's going to fit your program, and what's going to fit your kids.
Well, I think the big thing too, like, and kind of going off of this, I think the biggest issue, I think for everybody going into next year is like when they redraw the zoning lines. Like, some of my kids are going to Kenwood or Northeast. Some of the Northeast kids are going to Kirkwood. I know your kids are going to Kirkwood. I know Clarksville. Like, it's a lot of moving parts. So, like, you're trying to figure out, like, who is really coming back, who doesn't know that they're not coming back, and you're trying to, like, that's kind of, I think, part of the craziness of the off season too, is where you're sitting there thinking, like, okay, like, what neighborhood do you live in?
Who's going to be at weight training today?
Yeah, who's going to be at weight training today? Like where does this? Like, how do we fit these kids into it? And then when we get an influx of new kids, because when they shift the lines up, you're trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we have truly next year? And like you said, it's really an unknown until, I mean, spring ball even. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever. I've been on staff where spring ball looks one way, and because our quarterback's playing baseball or track, and then you're running it with the backup or just a pure athlete, and then you go into the summer and you look a whole lot different. So
that's exactly what happened with me, Coach. That's definitely what happened with me, because my quarterback was playing soccer last season before he's graduated, but we didn't know what it looked like in the spring. We wanted to tweak our skill guys and tweak our lines, make sure that looked good. But the second he popped in the summer, we were like, okay, so we're gonna air this baby out. This guy can throw, he's got a cannon. So, and we had to adjust. We had to make sure that we could throw the ball effectively down the field, and you got to complement that with a good run game. And we wanted to make sure that we did that the best we could, and we gave our efforts, and results came the way they were. But we're definitely one of those examples. Yes.
I tell people, in the coaching world, we always talk about amongst head coaches and other programs, and what your problem is may not be my problem.
Oh, yeah.
And then you may have a problem in an area that I have no problem in, but I have a problem in another area. Is it administration? Is it field? Is it who's working with you? Your kids, or schooling, or their grades? I mean, so everybody's got their own issues, and a lot of times they're not the same issues as another coach may have in their program, and sometimes each year is different, right?
Oh, for sure.
So this year may not be the same as last year. It's not like, I think in college football, where for years you get kids for 4 years and it stays together. Nowadays with the portal, things are changing. They see a kid had a great year. Well, now he's going to move over here and move up a level and play, and that changes the dynamics. Those days are over with of going into college. I think where you're there for 4 or 5 years. Remember, it was the red shirt year. That was a big thing.
Yep.
Or gray shirt. That was huge. Nowadays, they just come in and they're playing 6 years, 7 years, and they get medical red shirt and a COVID red shirt and 2 coats and a COVID red shirt and a couple jackets and a hat and another red shirt. And, you know, so it's changed. So for us, it's you would think you'd have those, but, you know, you mentioned Kirkwood's open up. That's going to take some of our student body. And then Northeast is moving, and you guys, you're talking about you're losing some kids, and I think you're pretty stable for now.
I think I'm the only one that
it's not really being affected. So that, you know, you sort of have more of a stable base, and for us, you know, we're losing at least 12 or so players, you know, so that affects us. So yeah, all that stuff. Everybody's got their little different agendas and different things we have to put up with and deal with.
If you would have told me in this offseason that I would have had a 1 hour conversation about our grass, that's the thing I never, like, I had a great conversation about grass. Like, that's a coaching.
That's one part of coaching, isn't it?
One part. That's just one part,
Now, if we had turf, you know, we've all had turf.
Different.
Wouldn't that solve the problem? Like now, Metro's getting turf, Knoxville's had turf, all the Nashville Metro schools or Metro's getting turf, but the Nashville, Robinson County, Williamson County, all those guys up there are starting to get turf if they don't already have it. It's just economical. It's, you know, you're talking about paint, fertilizer, manpower, mowers, gas. It's just phenomenal the time that we spend, and your coaches or your paint man and buying the paint. I mean, paint's outrageous.
It is.
And I think it was the year of COVID hit, some people couldn't get paint.
Yeah.
I mean, you actually could not get paint. So I had to loan some out.
We were traveling state to state to pick up paint.
I mean, it was really another thing that you don't think about. You show up and the field's beautiful, but they don't know what it went through to get those lines on the field. So
the amount of hours.
Why do we have red lines this week? That's all the paint we can find. You know, orange lines, red lines. So if you had white lines after COVID, you was in good shape.
Yeah, you were the fancy schools. You know what I mean? You guys were the ones that bought it well ahead of us.
Yeah, bought it ahead of time.
Mine didn't have an emblem on the middle of my field. I tell you that. I was like, no, we don't need it.
And I think
NW.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think is cool about like the turf is like it would eliminate the need for a practice field. You know, because we played beach and we went to beach, and when you look at where their field, I mean, it's immaculate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They earn money, I think, through some advertisements, I think, that are on the field, and they got some other things set up. But, I mean, you walk out there, you can play every sport that you want to, you know what I mean, without tearing the field up. You can play all the junior pro and all the middle school games and everything that you have to, again, like you said, you have to get feed, you have to get, you know, paint, you have to get all tight, you have to pay somebody to cut the lawn.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's 2 fields. You know, where they have to do the same thing with our practice field.
Yeah, for sure.
What people don't realize is that you just mentioned that not only are we playing in the game, but you have soccer. Now you have girls flag football. It's a new program starting up in the county. You have a JV game you might play on Monday. We used to have freshman games on Thursday and or middle school games.
On Saturdays.
And then you're going to play on Friday. And then if you go to junior pro game, which could be 4 to 5 games on a Saturday. I mean, the field gets a wear and tear, and, you know, it's a safety issue also, but it's a lot of money poured into and time management on the field. So for us, last year our water system was down, which it's still down, and but we still don't have it fixed. But so how do you water the field? Is that not important in the summertime? I mean, it's fertilizer, it's aerating, and it's heat and water. That's how grass grows, right?
Yeah.
So you go out there and you cut one off and you cut one on, you wait 45 minutes and you go out there and you cut one. So you have to spend 3 to 4 hours waiting, watching the water, or go do things and come back that's how to do that all summer. So
I had the same issue.
So our
as
field
well.
didn't look as good this year as it normally did because of that factor. We didn't get enough water on the field. So, but turf would solve all that, wouldn't it?
I think it would.
I mean, just go out there and roll out the ball there a little bit. Man, if it rains, right? Have a little fun out there.
The band wants to get out there, you know. Band can, you know, be out there for hours stomping around and
practice field. It's your practice field. It's your game field. It's your soccer field. So that's a good pitch for Montgomery County to start looking into that. John Miller, that's a piece for you, Mr. Miller, and the administration up there. Let's look into that and find a way to get that for all the schools in Montgomery County. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it would definitely just elevate us to where, I think with middle school football coming back, I know Mr. Miller's done a great job kind of with that. And then,
Yes.
I know turf has been kind of
We
thrown
mentioned
out
that
there
on
as
episode
well.
1.
Yeah.
That's how that's sort of getting transpired as far as the middle school program getting implemented, not where it should be, not where we want it to be, but it's a start.
It is.
And trying to get things lined up, and the administration, the John Miller and the Montgomery County has done a good job starting to fund that and get that going in the right direction. Because we played a team last year that our middle school team had sign-ups on like the 18th of August and sign-ups. So their next game was like the 23rd of August, which is amazing. And one of the teams that we played, they already had their middle school picture posted 3 weeks before we even met our kids. So that is huge in the implementation of a feeder program, because as we get kids, some of our kids don't know gap scheme, zone scheme, read schemes, RPO. They think RPO is just letters. They don't even know what it stands for. Right? RPO sounds good. So run, pass, option. So what is an option?
True.
So you can do either or on one play. It's amazing. What about ladies? What about young women? So we were talking earlier about flag football, so that's the new thing here. So that gives them an avenue, and I've had mainly kickers. I've had a lady at Rossview that kicked for me for a couple years, did a really good job. I've got a lady now. She's kicking some with us. She's soccer and kicking, so she's iffy from time to time because of her schedule. But I've never had really a girl actually play on the field. So what about you guys? What have y'all?
Yeah, when I first got back to West Creek, we had one girl. She was a kicker, and she did a really good job for us. And then last year, we had a offensive lineman, or offensive woman, and she played a little JV for us. She got in, and so that's been kind of a unique experience, just kind of navigating that and, making sure they enjoy the game, but, keeping it safe and keeping it fair and making sure, that she feels a part of the team, So
we dress all in one locker room?
No.
Or do we not? Because is that a problem?
No.
I mean, where do they dress, right?
So
that's an issue.
The good thing for us is we have our female trainer has her own room, and so then she'll go in there.
Spot.
She'll kind of run in there, and that's where she kind of keeps her shoulder pads, her helmet,
Right.
because there's not really lockers built on the other side in the girls' locker room for that kind of stuff.
Right.
So she kind of keeps it all in there, and then she'll run in there and then meet us outside and kind of go from there.
What about you, Coach P?
Well, 2 seasons ago, I had a female running back. She even, we were short-handed against Nashville Christian, and she started that game at Nashville Christian. So she knew the scheme. She ran tough. She just lifted. She was strong, and she was an excellent young lady. Like, she part of the team. We took her in, and she did really well. And
is that very unusual to see a girl play at that level? The development and actually playing and trying to,
it
like
brings
a running back
questions.
position?
I'm not gonna lie, it brings questions. But at the end of the day, if they go out there and perform, if they go out there and they work as hard or outwork the person in front of them, it's always going to be next one up. It looks different, but when you see the abilities that that this world and young ladies and young men have evolved in so much, some of them can run out there with the best of them. And Kaylin Richards is an amazing, physical, very aggressive, talented young lady. She played in JV games, and like I said, we were down 2 backs at Nashville Christian, and she started that game as well on our varsity level. But we had a defensive lineman. I think she played JV, but nothing else outside of that. But at the end of the day, it's about who can perform. I'm going to put the best 11 on the field, and to the best of our abilities. I think the flag football, the emergence of that for our young ladies in our area and in our district is phenomenal. flag football has always been fun.
Well, now, if we don't have some guys pick it up on our team, they're going to the flag football this spring with the ladies.
I wish I could. Yeah,
I can tell you that right now.
I wish I
better
could
pick up the pace. They're going to get some flags in about a week or two.
And they don't. It might be the other side. If I got a young lady out there with 10 catches for 317 yards and 7 touchdowns, she might need to come talk to me. Like,
Now, you talk about that. So on the other side, that had a quarterback one time. His name was Bryce Robinson. I don't know if you know the guy. Plays at Austin P. Phenomenal kid, super kid. Hey, he might be in the studio today. I don't know.
Might be.
But now we're playing this team, and they had a female nose guard. So we had like a sight call or a freeze call where you make a call and nobody does anything, right? So their nose guard, we made the sight call, and the nose guard jumped off sides and just smashed our good size center. And I'm not going to call his name out. Okay. So now when we hit film. Now we're just blowing it up like it wasn't a sight call, right? Like that girl really laid you out, man. Oh, coach, we had a sight, So we're just like ripping him in the meeting, and all week just giving him a hard time, because he got knocked on his butt when, she jumped the gun and jumped was offsides and killed him. But we give him a hard time about that. So
that's a great one.
Now, I had one time that she played on the freshman team, and I didn't really see her play, but she says she played, but I didn't really see that. Okay, love the girl, great girl. And so she comes in, and the freshman ends, and we're going to varsity. Say, if you want to stay for the varsity, practice with us and play until the season ends, you're good to do that. If you're a freshman and want to go home and wait for the winter training, you'll do that. Well, she said, Coach, I'm coming out. And I really didn't. Now, I'm an honest guy. I just really didn't think she was cut out for that. Mm-hmm. And I said, listen, I need a manager. You'll do a great job. You'll do a great job. I need you in that role. I just sensed that. And she was like, no, Coach, I really want to come out today. I said, well, it's a good day that you're coming out today, because the first thing we're doing is tackling. And you're going to be the first one I put out there, and I'm going to make sure you can tackle before we can do anything else. I'm going to coach you, and you're going to go over and over again, because you're part of the team. It doesn't matter who the kid is, right? You're a varsity player until I see that you can do that. And she said, Coach, I think I'll make a great manager.
But I think safety.
And she did.
I think in essence, safety.
Hey, I'm just a truthful guy. That's
safety is a concern.
I was scared
period.
for her.
Safety is a concern. Period.
Sure.
In a sense of body weight, right? Because strength is very important, and they all go through the same things we go through. Sure. They're gonna go in there. They're gonna lift. We have them given the same expectations, but some of them it may be a risk. It may be a risk. I'll tell you now, like.
And with some males too.
Males as well.
Male or female.
Yeah, males as well too.
Sure.
Because you don't want to be in a tackling drill with some of these guys that I coach.
Right.
They're just physically
I don't want to
gifted.
be in a tackling drill against
I don't
you,
even want to walk. I don't go in there either now. I don't go in there either.
That's illegal, by the way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That was a couple years ago that happened.
Physically, there's guys on all of our teams that are just physically gifted and have that killer's mentality that I am going to destroy whoever's in front of you. I already know who yours is. That young man, you explain your outside backer that comes in. He's a physical kid. I think he's number 20, right? Yeah. Correct. Physical young man. You see him on film, it pops out. You have physical players all over the place. When we played in our jamboree, they're flying around. So, but when they see it, when it's time, male or female, it ain't about hiding in the back. Everybody's going to go through and learn the right way to fundamentally tackle. Sure. And that's a deal breaker for a lot,
Let me ask you this real quick. So I've had, again, just talking to coaches, sometimes people just, spring ball is always kind of a topic that people ask, like is spring ball actually beneficial when you're missing so many kids and like you said, like you don't have those pieces? Is it better just to kind of skip that and move it into right into the summer, where maybe it'd be better to swap out, hey, let us go, 2 weeks in the summer or 2 weeks and a little bit more earlier, or do we get a benefit of going 2 weeks in pads? Because I know
2 days.
We all go through it. You got to go 2 days in helmets, and really you get 8 days.
Right.
Right. Well, I guess you'd get 9, right? And then include a game. Where are the kids getting better? Is that more for us to see what we have? is that, like, what is your take on spring ball?
That's a very good question. You know, your thought process is if you moved it to June where you could do a 2-week, call it spring and June, would it be more beneficial? Really, it probably might be that way. I think because what you're mentioning is with everybody doesn't have the same issue with players. So every football player's not playing baseball or soccer or whatever. So, but the good thing about spring is I think you get it. And my thing is, if you're a new kid, and we get a lot of new kids out every winter, right? You get them come out and coach, I want to play, and that's the best time for me because that's when you slow everything down. Yep. You start all the drills from day one. You start stance, starts. You're doing board work. Everything is ground level. So for those guys, it's really good for the fundamentals and the basics. For the older kids, that should be just touching up. You know, we're always reviewing fundamentals. That's always important. And that's totally different than when a kid transfers in the first week of the game, right?
Yes.
All that stuff's out. Now it's like scheme. Well, you got to know the plays. We taught that back in spring. We taught it all summer. And the passing scheme and the defense is now you're here, and that has to accelerate. So can they learn? So how many kids have you had come in? So we had a kid come in a couple of years ago. We just was about one lineman short. And he's like, he's a starter. Well, yeah, he ain't been there one day yet, you know. So by looking at a kid, he looked like he could play, but it didn't transpire into being a lineman like we wanted. So I think the spring ball is really good for fundamentals and teaching. Would it be more beneficial in June? Probably so, because you probably have more kids and the kids that you wanted, or would be more of your team than some of the kids that you've missed. I think that might be a better thing to move it.
I also agree. I think that's a great start because it's, I mean, there's different factors as far as non-stop from June, whatever, but I mean, I'd rather have it a few weeks starting in June and then, you know, keep rolling. That would be great. Right. Yeah. As far as spring as well, I think it's a culmination of, hey, this is who we are as a staff. You're gonna meet your coaches. You're gonna know them through lifting, but you don't know them out there yet. Yeah. And like you said, is teaching those everyday drills that you're gonna go through, teaching those expectations. Some guys going through, your initial bread and butter plays that you know worked a lot last season that you're gonna run this season. That's a big thing. And for coaches, it's our initial start in knowing who you got as far as your positions and who's coming out, because some guys may drop down and say, hey, I'm playing corner, and you're like, buddy, you're not fast enough for that. But go see coach over here about outside linebacker. Or you might see somebody as a backer that has crazy speed that you might say, hey, go to safety and see what that looks like. So you moving and shifting personnel around helps, and I think, like, we go back to it, understanding tackling. I'm always resort back to tackling because we introduced that. We introduced the crawl, walk, run phase, so they got to understand what that is. And, you know, it's a 2-week piece, and then we're done for a few more weeks until we get into our summer plans. But I think it's important to have that to kickstart what everything's, because I don't know about y'all, but with me, once spring hits, it starts flying. It starts going. Yeah.
You know, back in the old days, we had the rule was in June you could do nothing but lift weights.
Correct.
Really?
So you could only lift weights. You couldn't throw a football unless your kids, you would leave the weight room, they go throw and all that fun stuff. But coaches couldn't be out there. So that was a phase for years. And then they finally brought back, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 or 5 years where you can actually go out there. And so June is actually anything you want to do. Yeah. You can put a helmet on and you can run through plays, you can work out, you can run, you can do all 3 or whatever that you want to do. Your plan can be set in the way you want. Now you can't go full pads.
Correct.
You can't have contact. But as far as that goes, so you're getting a lot more geared up to July than the old days. You come in July, man, we had camp for 2 weeks, 5 days a week, 3 practices a day. That's unheard of now. Y'all don't even know what that is. That's 15 practices a week. You don't even know what that is. Your kids are unthinkable.
Yes.
But we had that for the first week in shorts. And then the second week you put pads on, did the same thing. On Friday was your scrimmage. So you got everything in during that camp period, which with the rules they have now is they've almost eliminated camp. Yeah. To that degree. You can still have, a couple practices a day, and you can stagger it when you can have contact and when you can't. And by the rules, but it's not like it used to be where you could do all that. But so nowadays, I think the rule in June where you can throw, put your helmet on, do your schemes, I think that's much more beneficial. And getting us, especially with, school starts, kids are coming in, coaches, what coaches you have. So when you're scheduling your summer work, sometimes people don't think about is if you want to practice in the morning, what for your coach is working? Every coach is not a teacher.
Yeah.
So you got to start going to do offense, you're going to do defense. So different things that you plan strategically and who your coaches and your personnel and your kids. So all those things are vitally important. But I do miss the old days where we had 3-a-days from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I miss those days now. That was a lot of fun. Got a lot of teaching, and listen, the parents loved it because your kids come home, they ate and slept. They didn't run around. They didn't bother you. He was like, Coach, man, my son is asleep. He's in bed. He's like at 9 o'clock. He's already out. The next day he's out like at 6:30. So those days are great, and I miss those days. That was very, very beneficial. You get so much in because you had classwork too. Yeah. And you could do that all day with with the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, special teams. You would put all that in during the day, and you had time to practice it in the afternoon or the morning. Absolutely. So that was very beneficial. But the rule with the spring ball, Kentucky didn't have a spring ball for a long time. Now they're having spring ball, but they can't scrimmage. So, which is not a bad rule. So for years, when I was at Fort Campbell for 3 years, we didn't have spring ball. It didn't affect us. Yeah. I don't think it affected us at all, really. So that's a good point. Yeah. I can go back to when I talk about coaches that I've been with, I've coached with, or was an idol of mine, or people I know from the county. The first one comes to mind was Marshall Patterson. So he retired. He was a 3-time state championship coach at Fort Campbell, and he retired over there and come to Northwest. And he hired me. Of all the people he interviewed, one other guy. That was me, just me. So I'm the only one guy there. It's him and me. So I'm like, hey, Coach, I'd like to be your defensive coordinator, And he's like, hey, okay, come on board. I'm like, nobody else wanted the job. It was just me. So that's how I got my first defensive coordinator job at Northwest. But that guy was number one, was a good man. What a great man, a great leader, a great teacher, the way he taught the kids, the way he responded to the kids. And he was old school. Now, he was coaching back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. But he had old school philosophies. But really, it's funny because when you're young, you don't believe any of that stuff, right? Because you're different. But when you get older and you start looking back, you understand some of those philosophies, and you do the same thing now that he was doing because it makes sense. But the way he did things was so phenomenal, and just a great man. His wife, Sissy, Coach Patterson passed away about 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. His wife, Sissy, is in Knoxville now with her children, but what a great family. I learned so much from him. It was phenomenal. The next one I could bring up is Sean Berner at Fort Campbell. We had I thought it was a great coaching staff. We worked together really great. The way he organized, the schemes, the way we went off and met other coaches, and we did things, learned so much from him. Coach McKillop was out there, and just all of our staff was just really, really fun to be with. Of course, we had some really great years. I mean, we played 45 games in 3 years, won 3 state championships. That was phenomenal, and the kids were amazing. And that was to watch him do some things was very eye-opening for me, being a young coach and learning those things. So those two guys were really, really big for me. My high school coach, I love Doug Brown, and if he sees this, Doug, you're one of the best coaches that I can ever be around. But Coach wasn't the best X and O guy back in the 80s. But if you wanted somebody to do something for you, he was always there. He was like a father figure to me. And my mother was sick. She passed away of cancer my senior year. So to have him in my life, to do the things that he did for me, and really back in those days, he found me a scholarship to Austin Peay State University. He did that for me, the way he did things and talked to coaches. It's so much different now, but back in that day, he did that for me. Man, still alive. As a matter of fact, he called me the other day, we're talking. So those three are the best coaches that I was really idols, great people, great men of God, and just things that you can really learn from. And when you're around people like that rubs off on you a lot, how to do things and how to treat people. So what about you, Coach G?
I would say in high school there was a couple people, my coaches there, that kind of situation was a little chaotic because those years we weren't very good when I was at Northeast, and But I would say I think I really looked up to Coach Welch, who's at Rossview. He was out there coaching, and he helped with the D line and offensive line. And I always thought, anytime we had a question or anything, like, he was always a guy that would answer those questions for you. They definitely were hard on us. But I think that helped me kind of keep at it. I think there was times where, I think you go through the summer season, the off season, you're like, man, I don't know if I want to play football anymore. You know what I mean? But those were guys that just made you continue to fight for it. So I think Coach Welch was a really good influence on me. Obviously, John Offit, he was the first coach I worked for at West Creek.
Right.
He's a great guy, and he was the guy that I kind of really looked up to. He kind of showed me what I was doing, because I think watching football and coaching football are two different things.
Sure.
And so a lot of people think, well, it's one and the same, and it's not. And so kind of giving me the foundation I needed. And then obviously, going under Isaac Shelby for a while at CHS, he was the big, he knew, like, before he hired me, like, why I was going there.
Right.
And, he knew that I wanted to be a head coach. He knew I wanted to, kind of grow in this profession and kind of take a similar route. And so, I'll never forget it. There's times, like, he'd be like, well, if you want to be a head coach, you got to go do this. If you want to be a head coach, you got to do this. And he would tell me that all the time. Like, and it would be like things that you're like,
I want to go home.
Is this really what head coaches are doing, dog? Because you ain't doing. I'm doing it. But I will say, but like, long story short, like I think that put me in a better position when I interviewed for a job, because when they're like, "Do you know how to schedule buses?" Yep. Do you know how to start a fundraiser? Yep. Do you know how to deposit money and not get fired? Yep. Do you know how to, like, every system that you needed to do in Montgomery County, I was well trained in, because he walked me through it. He helped me with it. And then obviously, he does such a great job with just the creativity of the offense and the way he runs his program. And majority of the stuff that I do has been stolen from him, just because, again, like, what he did worked, and the way he explained it. I remember I walked in there, and I'm more of a defensive guy. But I was like, hey, I need you to kind of explain the offense to me. Like, why do we run this? And then why do we pair this with it? And then he would walk you through it. And it was really like going to like getting a master class in football. And then it's kind of fun to, like, go against him.
Sure.
Now,
it's good that you have people that's in that position where, and as you get, as your coaches come through, that you want to mentor. I've had many come to me, teach me. So as you're teaching them, not just X's and O's, which is huge, but it's also how you do other things in the program. So it's good that, Coach Shelby is willing. Some coaches ain't willing to do that. You know what I mean? Some coaches ain't willing to teach you everything and show you everything, because maybe it's a secret, or maybe he knows he's going to lose you or go against you. So, so that's pretty cool of him to do that for you.
Yeah, it was really, it's a really great thing, I think, when you have people that you can kind of rely on like that, where, you kind of go from there. So what about you?
It's very, very unique from my side, because I used to be such a troublemaker, and
you're not a Clarksville boy, so
I'm not. I'm a South Carolina guy, and growing up inner city, I'd say the first one probably who affected me and impacted me well was Coach Jimmy Brown out of North Charleston High School when I was young, because I was just trying to be a hard-headed kid too, but he never let up on those young guys out there. We were all just wild, but Coach Brown was so respected in the school and in the community, and I looked up to him because the way he carried himself as a coach, alongside, like you're saying, alongside with the knowledge of the game, just how he carried himself, as a coach. And I always, was a guy that watches how other people work and move and how they were. And I would say he'd be the first one to stand out as Coach Jimmy Brown, and that was at North Charleston High School. Then I had transferred, and I went to Stratford High School, where Coach Ray Stackley, who was a legendary coach, alongside Coach John McKissick, God rest his soul, who was at Somerville and one of the most winningest coaches, out there. Ray Stackley has to be the next guy, because he gave me the tough love to say, hey, like, you need to fix who you are in order to be part of this, program, and it kind of started that evolution right there of me as a person. And then going through the military, I ran through a bunch of great leaders. But then my whole trajectory changed when I started coaching because, I was kind of an older guy, but I had, two, and these are the two that really affected me the most. And the weird thing is, both of them are younger than me. And Maurice Owens, who's currently in Austin, Texas, running a semi-pro team right now, but we were at Windsor Forest High School in Savannah, Georgia, and the gauntlet of Georgia football is just, it's really, really crazy because there's so much big talent, fast talent. And you can have a team that's just straight power one week, then another team that just has tremendous speed the next. Georgia football is just wild. But Coach Owens always made sure that I didn't, that I knew what I was doing as far as the game, understanding the game, the process, keeping a certain way, not losing it on the sideline. I know I'm an animated dude, I'm a passionate dude, but that's one of the big things is like keeping me in that control. But X's and O's all day long. He's younger than me, but I always tell people that I'm a part of the Austin Brown coaching tree out of Louisiana. He's a head coach at Northwood. He's the AD there. It's made it to the Louisiana playoffs, year after year with amazing talent, amazing kid. But the guy just knows football, man. He eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And I'm about to tell this story, and I'm probably going to send this to him when I see him. Was my first game coaching as a linebackers coach for him. I was utterly nervous because I was a DBs guy, right, and then I had swapped to a D-line guy. But then when he became the coordinator, he wanted me as linebackers. I didn't know. I was nervous as crap. So he sits there and he's like, man, I'm like, one of those, how those kids are, like it's 2 hours before a game and they're excited and they're hype and they're jumping around and you're like, what are you doing? Like, yeah. Why are y'all like this? The game doesn't start for 2 hours, and you're already in helmets and shoulder pads ready to go. But I was one of those young coaches that were like, yeah, let's go, like excited hours before the game. So he like, man, come here, like sat me down, made me like, man, you gotta chill, like relax. I know you're excited to play the game, like go to the game, but
coaches,
a guy younger than me, yeah, but I always soaked up everything he knew, and I mean, he taught me an amazing scheme and taught me about stunts, taught me about coverages, and taught me the totality of being. Anytime I need anything as a head coach, he's one of the first people I call because I know he'll send me something back that not only will benefit me, X's and O's wise, but will help me, develop a program because he has a phenomenal program at Northwood High School in Shreveport right now.
That's neat.
Love that man to death. So those are my guys, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. So we can talk about predictions before we get out of Super Bowl Sunday, right? Yep. Big day. I think they just passed a holiday Monday that everybody's off. Just that was not true. Holiday. I just threw that out there.
I wish.
Okay, but now, so since we're going to talk about gambling, and we know no one here is going to Vegas to gamble or anything, right?
No.
Coach Gallowitz, no one here is going there for learn football. But so. That being said, so I'm going to go with the Eagles. I just think, man, they are rolling. They are on their game. And I know Mahomes is Mahomes, and he's a game changer. But I'm going to go with the Eagles. So what you got?
I would say it's hard to bet against Pat Mahomes. I really do. If you're a betting man. But I just think he's got so many different weapons. I think, Andy Reid, you know what I mean?
Yes,
I mean, there's no other head coach that can rock a Hawaiian shirt better than Andy Reid. So, I mean, I think that gives him a little edge.
Did you see the old, pass, punt, and kick contest? You ever see that?
Yeah.
Well, Andy, you ever see when he's like,
I haven't seen his, no.
Andy's like, 12, 13 years old, looks like he's 30. Right, big dude punting the ball. I think he won the contest. Wow. So it's amazing. They got that. You can look that up on YouTube, but you can Google that one, man. But it's amazing. But so you've got Mahomes, you've got Kansas City. What do you got, Coach?
Well, my 3-leg parlay bet says the Eagles, but I'm right there with Coach Gallowitz, a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, hasn't been anything less than an AFC title game after his rookie year. It's hard to go against Patrick Mahomes. The guy just knows how to operate in big, big moments. And, you know, I think his health is the biggest question probably here. And, you know, he's solidified that offensive line, which was the issue last year when they were in the Super Bowl. I think this year, I mean, the Eagles are talented all through and through, especially that pass rush is great. But when you got Patrick Mahomes on the field, all of that just, you know, you take him away, this is a blowout. But when the real reason why I picked Kansas City is because you put Patrick Mahomes in the fold, you got a chance to win any day of the week at any stage in the NFL.
And you wonder why we're all talking about quarterbacks in the
Yes.
spring, huh? So
Yes.
does that make
Yes.
a difference? Can a guy, when things aren't going well, can he make a play?
Yes.
Can he get out of something that doesn't look like anything? And, you know, is a 3-yard, 5-yard loss or a sack or a pick or an incompletion, or does he make a big play like Patrick Mahomes does? And can he run 20 yards when they need 19?
Yep.
How many times have you seen him do that? Or throw the ball or flip the ball, or a couple of weeks ago he just ran and limped and threw the ball perfectly in the back of the end zone. So
On one
yeah,
foot.
just
On one
phenomenal guy. So yeah. Hey, thank you guys for joining us for CCN's Coach's Corner Episode 2. Watch it again.
For current and exclusive content, subscribe to CDE Lightband, connecting you at the speed of light.